On everybody, this is your tour guide around Swag C Wells coming at you with another video today. Y'all make sure y'all lock in with us. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, and become a part of the Swag Talk family by becoming a member. 99 cents gets you a membership to the YouTube channel. We have special perks coming at you. We're going to be dropping special members only videos and shorts. I'm going to have rants and reactions to different things that I want to put there. So if you want to get everything, man, become a member of the Swag Talk crew for 99 cents and get down, man. And so we're going to still be bringing y'all a lot of stuff, swag smoke and everything like that, and all our normal videos. But we also bring y'all that membership tier. So get down with that. Check out the Facebook and Instagram, both Swag Talk, Twitter Swag Talk 76. And now let's get on with the show, man. Let's do it.
Welcome to the show, see Bojo guy. Wednesday, Sundays, catch the ride. Football hoops, we breaking wide. Stats and facts, truth on high. SWAT talk where the convo's real. From Texas to Florida, we seal the deal. Just pull up, the vibes are real. Chopping it up, we spin the wheel. Hit the corner of the field, we strategize. Breaking the game down, no disguise. Play by play, we analyze. Eyewear sharp, we magnify. SWAT talk where the convo's real. From Texas to Florida, we seal the deal. Just pull up, the vibes are real. Chopping it up, we spin the wheel. Wednesdays heat, Sundays ignite. We talking legends shining bright. Back and forth, day or night. This the plug, we bring the light. SWAT talk where the convo's real. From Texas to Florida, we seal the deal. Cats pull up, the vibes are real. Chopping it up, we spin the wheel. Wednesdays heat, Sundays ignite. We talking legends shining bright. Back and forth, day or night. This the plug, we bring the light. SWAT talk when the convo's real. From Texas to Florida, we seal the deal. Cats pull up, the vibes are real. Chopping it up, we spin the wheel.
All right, everybody, what's going on, man? How y'all doing? Of course, tour guide around the Swag C Wells coming at you. Week 3 preview, jumping off today. And of course, got the Yard Apparel brand merch on, man. Y'all make sure y'all check out their website, the yardapparelbrand.com. Got a lot of great stuff on there, man. So why don't y'all go ahead and lock in with them and get you something nice to wear to these games and out and about and let everybody know, man, where they putting it down at. So, of course, again, that's the Yard Apparel brand. Got that nice little fly SU Jaguar shirt with the nice big Jaguar head logo on it. So y'all make sure y'all lock in with them. All kind of stuff, some real fly stuff. Y'all make sure y'all check them out. Um, on with the previews, man. Week 3 got a full slate of action. All 12 teams are in action. No no conference, non-conference games. So everybody's playing D2, sub D2 games, FBS games, couple FCS games. So let's go ahead and get into it, man. And we're gonna start off with UAPB Golden Lions taking on the Lincoln, California Oaklanders. Um, this is one of, I think, 4 games that Lincoln has on their schedule against SWAC opponents. So they basically they should be a SWAC team. I joke about it a lot, but they play in a lot of SWAC games for various reasons. But they are on the schedule. Not gonna really spend a ton of time on this game. Pine Bluff. I expect them to get right in this game at least for one Saturday. It's been a rough start of it against Central Arkansas and Texas Tech. So now this week they get to hopefully be the team to do the beating up. Lincoln is 0-2. They lost their 2 games. I think they scored a combined 18 points, I believe. Then they gave up like 100 and I think they gave up like 140 something some odd points in 2 games and scored like 18. So nothing's close. Pine Bluff come out try to get that run game established, try to get the offense going, defense. Maybe we can make a few plays here and there. I still am wary about these kind of teams because you just never know what these cats are gonna bring to the table. But I like Palms over this game. I said 48-7. I think they put some points on the board and send everybody home happy in their home opener. So, good opportunity to get out there and mix it up and pick up a win. Next, we're gonna go through our FBS games, and we're gonna start off with first off with the battle of the Houston area. Rice hosting PV. Panthers going back to Houston for the second time in 3 weeks. Um, PV is not, of course, they're of course they're a work in progress, but they are showing some good signs. They're giving up about 24 points on defense, scoring 21. Um, they're averaging 376 yards per game on offense. They're giving up 337. So they're doing really well, especially on the defensive side of the ball. They're number three in rush defense at 140 yards per game. They're 157 yards per game on the ground. The passing attack is second right now at 219 yards per game. They're second in defense at 197 yards per game. So, playing two FCS opponents, the numbers are looking really good. Of course, they're 1-1. Both games were close, but they had an opportunity to beat UT RGV on Saturday, let it slip out their hands. But they're looking pretty sharp right now. They got an opportunity against a Rice team that isn't really doing a lot. They're 13th out of 14 in scoring offense. They only scored 11 and a half points per game. Um, they're ninth in defense at about 23 and a half points per game. What Rice does best on offense right now is run the ball. They're eighth in the league at 191 yards per game, averaging 3.5 yards per carry. Um, the total offense is last at 239. They're averaging 100. They're averaging only 48 yards per game through the air, so their passing attack is just not. It's just not clicking. They've only thrown the ball 22 times, so they're just not. They've thrown the ball less than Army, and Army is a team who notoriously does not pass the ball. Now they are efficient when they throw the ball. They're 18 or 22 for 81%. They have no touchdowns, but they do have interception. But they don't really they want to run the football. So you can expect for them to line up and run the ball in this game. They're second only the Army in rushing attempts at 108. So they want to run the football as they've shown in two games. Um, they ran the ball over 100 times and thrown it less than 25. So they're gonna line up and run. PV has to be aware of that. Their run defense is not that great, 177 yards per game, and their passing defense is third at 138 yards per game. Now I don't know if their passing defense is better they because teams can run the ball on them, or is the pass defense just that good? Um, any notable individual guys they have? Quentin Jackson is eighth in the league in rushing at 171 yards and one touchdown. He's averaging 4.6 yards per carry. So that's definitely a name that you want to look out for. And when you have a team that doesn't really throw the ball that much, not that much to account for there. They do have Ty Morris, who is sixth in the league in tackles. He has 18 right now. Um, and so that's probably one of the guy that you can look at as one of their top defenders at this point. Michael Daly is ninth in sacks. He has 1.5 sacks right now on the season. So they're pretty. They've had their ups and downs all season. PV coming into this game, Cam Peters started at quarterback. Tevin Carter relieved him. Like I said, they've been looking pretty solid. I'm looking for them to continue to kind of do what they're doing. Chase Bingman has run the ball well for them this season. Fourth in the conference right now at 171 yards per game. Um, you just kind of want to see them come out and play hard, and of course, you fully anticipate that happening with them. Um, and so this is probably not going to be a super super high scoring game because, like I said, Rice hasn't really put points on the board. Um, So I'm gonna say, I'm leaning. I want to see PV score a few more points. Like I said, they're high so far as 22. Um, but I think Rice. I like Rice. I'm gonna say 31-17. I think the Owls can steal it. I guess that's a way to say for FBS team to win, but I think the Owls find a way to pull this out and pick up the victory there. Next, we have Mississippi State taking on Alcorn. Looking at the Bulldogs this season so far, they've been pretty solid. Aren't really scoring a ton of points, or at least when you look at the way the SEC is ranked. They're 29th in the 29 points per game is 13th in the league. Um, so and that's what a lot of those teams playing like FCS games, but they have played two FBS games against Southern Miss and Arizona State. So they played comparable competition, and they scored 29 points per game. They gave up 18 and a half. So that number is pretty solid. When you look at it compared to other teams playing, like I say, FCS games. So there's a lot of teams who have those blowouts on their ledger, and so their numbers aren't as high as those teams because they've played comparable opponents. Um, so it's tough to kind of make out what they are, but they're averaging 405 yards per game on offense, which is 11th. Defensively, they are 15th at 317 yards per game. Again, that's a number that will lead a lot of conferences, but a lot of these teams, like I said, played you know lower level teams, so the numbers are kind of skewed there. Um, they're 13th in rushing offense, 126 yards per game, so they're not really running the ball that great. They allow 176 yards per game on the ground, which would probably be a lower ranked number, even regardless at any portion of the season. And they are eighth in passing offense at 279 yards per game. They have four touchdowns and one interception. Their pass defense is sixth at 140 yards per game. And again, that's a pretty solid number. Um, just a couple people to look for and see where they stand in conference. They don't have anybody right now in the conference in the top 10 in rushing. But like I said, they only ran the ball for like 126 yards per game. Uh, Blake Shopping is their quarterback. He's fifth in the league right now, 45 and 66. Has one interception, four touchdowns, 551 yards. Has a long of 57. One They do have Brennan Thompson, who is third leading receiver in the conference. He has 13 catches for 225 yards and two touchdowns. Um, so he's definitely a key target for them. Alcorn coming off of a game against Alabama A&M where it was definitely a super high scoring first quarter actually. And then it kind of got steady from there. Um, and ended up 41-31. Braves are 0-2 coming into this game. Um, so the offense played a bit better. The defense played a little bit worse than they did, but they're still third in the league in total defense at 359 yards per game. Um, they're seventh in total offense at 307. Uh, right now they're scoring 20 points, 20 and a half points per game, and they're giving up 30 and a half points per game. Again, that's mainly, 20 in one game, 41 in the other. Their rushing attack has been solid at 132 yards per game. That number is definitely going to go up because as conference play goes on, this is a team that wants to run the ball. Reggie Davis, Jacorian Sewell, both had touchdowns last week. Both are guys who are going to be able to get some things going on the ground for Alcorn. Alcorn is definitely a team that wants to run the football. They've run the ball 67 times so far. On the run defense, is seventh in the league at 187 yards per game. Again, they are a team who has played two FCS opponents, so their numbers are a little bit different. The passing offense is at 175 yards per game. Passing defense is at 172 yards per game, which leads the conference. Um, right now, like I said, this is just one of those games where you kind of just want to. You're looking for a clean performance from this team as a whole. I don't really feel like they've done that like I said, first game the defense played well, offense didn't. Second game, defense did not. I wouldn't say defense played bad, but they didn't really make a lot of the plays that you would expect them to make coming off of a effort that they had the previous week. Giving up like five touchdowns to Floyd Brown in the A&M game. And the offense has some flashes. This week, like I said, you just want to try to play a clean game. I like Mississippi State in this one. 56-7. Um, Braves, you know, have to kind of get back on the horse after this one and keep going. Our last FBS game of the night is a late night game, 9 o'clock Central Time. So, a lot of y'all will be doing other things when this game is going on. So probably can slip under the radar. And that's Southern taking on Fresno State. Um, the Jags come in off of a disappointing loss to Alabama State. They've made some changes, adjustments, as I called it in my previous video, to the offensive staff. Coach Fred McNair is taking over the play calling duties, but Coach Mark Frederick is still a part of the offensive system. So I don't know how that's going to work out. Um, this is a team that, again, they say, men lie, women lie, numbers don't, but sometimes they don't always tell the truth either. Because when you look at a lot of the numbers Southern put up this season, they've been pretty steady. I mean, they're only scoring 18 points per game, so that's not good. The defense is giving up about 30 points per game, which again is not good. Southern is averaging 347 yards of offense. The defense is at 358, which is second. The rushing attack is second at 217, and of course they are a team who wants to run the football. They ran the ball 119 times on the season, so that's about 39 point whatever times per game, which it is basically almost more at this point than most than a team like Pine Bluff, who's played 2 games and ran the ball 48 times. So Southern is a team that wants to run the football, and they've done it pretty well. The issue with Southern this season has been drops and turnovers. Those are things that can be cleaned up. I don't know how much is going to be cleaned up in a game like this, but those are fixable issues. That they're not necessarily world-ending issues, but they are fixable. But if you don't fix them, then you're going to end up in a heap of trouble. The Fresno State Bulldogs come in this game. They've also played 3 games. They're averaging 28 points per game on offense. Defensively, they're giving up. Excuse me. Defensively, they're giving up 24 points per game. They are third in total offense at 353 per game. They have 8 touchdowns on the season, averaging 6.03 yards per game. They're giving up 384 total defense. Let's see where I hate PDF stats. They're pretty solid running team. They run the ball 102 times for 585 yards. They're averaging 195 yards per game, 5.7 yards per carry, which is second in the Mountain West. So they're definitely a very efficient running team. Uh, they give up 143 yards per game on the ground. They've only given up 1 touchdown in 3 games. So they've been pretty good there. Uh, Passing wise, they average 158 yards per game. So they are definitely a team who is more of a running team. They've thrown the ball 74 times. They do have 5 interceptions on the season, so they've had their issues with turnovers as well. Defensively, um, they give up 240 yards through the air, um, and they have allowed 9 touchdowns and they do have three interceptions. But they're a run first team on the second in the conference in rushing. So you're definitely gonna look at them to kind of line up and run the football. Um, let's see if we can find some leaders. But like I said, they know what they have their identity, and that is to run the football. Um, when you look at some people who may be of note for this team, Rayshawn Luke is third in total offensive TDs with 4. Um, he's also, let's see, can I find him one? Like I said, I really hate PDF stats. They so crazy to get to find some numbers. Um, Bryson Donaldson is sixth in the league in rushing. He has 235 yards on the season, 5.7 yards per carry. He does have 1 touchdown and a longer 31. He's also second in total rushing yards at 235. So, like I said, they're definitely a team that wants to run the football. And EJ Warner, who is Kurt Warner's son, is their quarterback. He's 51 or 74 for 476 yards, no touchdowns, has 5 interceptions. Uh, so, like I say, just really, again, like most games, you want to see a pretty clean game, especially for Southern. I mean, they turned the ball over so much. Um, in this, four turnovers last week, 2 the previous week, 1 the first week. So that's seven turnovers in 3 games. You really need to clean that up more than anything else that you do. You need to cut down on the turnovers, and you need to be able to pass the ball efficiently. I don't think you have to throw the ball more than what you're doing, but you definitely have to be more consistent at it. That means cutting out the drops, and then the QB hitting guys when they are open. But this is a game that you can work out some of the kinks with the new coaching system and everything. I got Fresno State by score 44-14. I think the Bulldogs are gonna, I think they're gonna get theirs on the ground and hit those timely passes that teams tend to hit in these kind of games. So I think they advance there and get the win. So that's pretty much cut and dry with that one. Next up, we have Jackson State taking on Tuskegee. Um, Jackson State coming off of a loss to Southern Miss in a game where it was a competitive game. I think they had the opportunities. Um, Offensively, they still kind of putting some things together in the passing game. But the run game has been very good. This is another game I expect that to continue to be the case. Looking at the Golden Tigers, averaging 27 points per game, they only giving up 8.5. So they won their 2 matchups in comfortable fashion. Um, when you look at what they've done offensively, haven't really been great offensively though. Only 267 yards per game on offense. Defensively giving up 258. Um, they run the ball for 77 yards per game. Defensively, they've only given up 81, so they've been pretty stout against the run. Um, and the passing attack is at 190 yards per game. So again, not a lot, not a lot there when you look at the scores that they put up. But defensively, they're sixth in the league in passing defense. Um, so they've been really 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 steady. Just finding ways to win. Um, and just like I said, the numbers aren't that impressive, but they've been finding ways to make some things happen. Raekwon Bill, at quarterback, 33 of 58 for 376 yards, had 4 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. Um, his top target is EJ Hall. He has 5 catches for 111 yards, averaging 22 yards per catch. So that's a guy who probably going to try to get downfield and make some things happen. But Jackson State, I think they're gonna run some more in this game. They lead the league in rushing at 248 yards per game. Uh, they're third in league in scoring at 24 points per game. Second in scoring defense at 26 points per game. Second in total offense at 387 yards per game. Fourth in total defense at 369. The passing attack is 10th right now at 139 yards per game. Haven't thrown a touchdown so far this season, but I feel like this is probably one of those games where that changes. Um, and defensively, they're fifth against the pass. Um, they've been kind of picked on a little bit at 212 yards per game, but I look for guys like Terrence Terrell, um, Ahmad Miller, and those guys to really get going on the ground, as they've done already. And this is the kind of game that I can see the passing attack taking off. You should win your matchups against a team like Tuskegee. You should have the advantage on the offensive line against their defensive line. So, you should have the protection to throw the ball. And so I think Jackson State, I think they win this game comfortably. I think Tuskegee is gonna, put up a fight like a lot of these teams doing these matchups. They put up a fight early, but I think you can wear them down. I like Jackson State. I said 49-10. I think they win it, fairly comfortably, um, and pick up the dub there. Next up, continuing our SWAC versus SIAC challenge. Alabama State taking on Miles. Hornets played a solid game against Southern. Um, you can, I don't think anybody on that side feels like they played their best game of football. They had a turnover. They gave up a couple sacks. It took them a little while to get going. The defense was opportunistic, forced a couple turnovers. Offense was able to capitalize, and they didn't really put up the numbers that they did in the week before. But I thought they still were really good. I thought they had a good game plan and a good scheme, and they got their guys open. And guys made plays in space, and defense made the stops that they needed to make. I think this will be a better game for them to kind of show who they are and show what they made of. Miles has had a rough go of it this season, only averaging 8.5 points per game. They're giving up 45.5, so that definitely doesn't bode well coming into a game like this. They're last in total offense at 203 yards per game. They're 12th out of 13 in total defense at 456 per game. When you look at what they're doing running the ball, they're at 41.5 yards per game. They're last in rushing defense at 250 per game. They're ninth in passing offense at 162 yards per game. They have one touchdown, two interceptions. They're 10th in passing defense at 206 per game. So, they really, really struggled in the post Sam Shade era at this point. I know it's early, but they've had a rough start. And I don't expect this one to be any different. Uh, I do expect them to come out and play harder. I mean, they tend to kind of come to play against Bama State, but this Bama State team is gonna be, they're definitely gonna be in the mix in the East Division and in the conference as a whole. You got a nice offense there with Andrew Body running the offense. You got Jamari Holesclaw, Marcus Harris running the ball. You got basically a three-headed monster with them and Andrew Body. You got a ton of receivers who can make plays. Jalen Jones, Jai Harrell, um, Dylan G. All these guys can really make plays in the pass game. So I look for Bama State to name their score in this one. Maybe even get some guys out and get some other guys in to get some reps moving forward. Like I said, I think Miles is gonna, I think they're gonna play hard. They're gonna compete, but I don't really see them being too much of a challenge here. Like the Hornets, by a score of 54-6. I think they win this one pretty easily. Get some other guys in the game and go from there. Next up, again in our SIAC SWAC challenge, Grambling taking on Kentucky State. Gramblin's been all over the place, competition wise. It's not their fault. That's just how the schedule is. You open up with Langston, who is an NAIA team. Then you play the number one team in college football on the FBS level in Ohio State. Now you back to a D2 opponent. And then the next game you play, I think, is against East Texas A&M. So that's a FCS team, but they haven't really been playing so great. But so they've been kind of all over the place, and you really don't know what his team is. I thought they had some guys show some flashes um, in the Ohio State game. Your backs ran the ball well at times. You know, Raby had a nice interception on the defense. For what T-Set could do in that game, he hit a couple big passes. I know Knighton had a couple good catches. I think they did. I think they did. I think they did some things. Like I said, I like Andre Cruz running the ball and Trey Bradford as well, who is a guy I think does not get the carries that he should be getting in this offense. Um, there's no reason for that guy in 2 games um, to have 13 carries. I think he definitely should be the lead back in this offense. But I'm not the coach. But I think they have a nice stable of guys to run the football. I think they have some talented wide receiver. Defense still is opportunistic. They force turnovers in both their games so far. I don't see that being any different. Um, so it's just really tough to look at what his team is, and that's why I'm not really looking at them statistically because, like I said, you had an NAIA game first, and then an FBS game second, and now you got a D2 game. So the numbers are just going to be all over the place. But I know what those guys that they have are capable of doing, and so I really kind of expect them to do that again, like they did in the first game. T-Set can be an efficient guy. He can hit big passes down the field. He can run. Had a nice run against Ohio State. They're gonna run the ball in this game, and they're gonna run it well. They're gonna hit those big passes when they need them, and the defense is gonna be solid. Looking at Kentucky State, what do we know about them? Um, Obviously, not a lot, but they are second in the league in passing offense in the SIAC right now at 263 yards per game. They have 3 touchdowns and 2 interceptions, completing about 50% of their passes. They are 10th in total in rushing offense at 107 yards per game. So not the Kentucky State that we used to know that just ran the ball all the time. With the option attack, but now they are more of a modern offense throwing the ball. The 10th in rushing defense at 184 yards per game, which definitely bodes well for Grambling. Their passing defense is 11th at 211 yards per game. Again, all those numbers definitely favor Grambling. Like I said, they're averaging 27.5 points per game, but they're giving up 36.5. So they've scored points, but they've given up a lot of points. They're third in total defense, third in total offense, and 11th in total defense. Um, Torrance Bardell is the number 5 in passing offense in the conference. He's 17 of 34, 411 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. Does have a longer 85 this season, so definitely is capable of hitting a big play down the field. Um, Jalen Middleton is their top rusher right now, 23 carries, 68 yards, and a touchdown. Um, when you look at receiving, they do have the top receiver in the conference right now in terms of yardage. Uh, Darius Cyprian, he has 9 catches for 228 yards, averaging 25 yards per catch and 1 touchdown. Definitely a big play guy. You're gonna see how consistent he can be with that. But they also have Chad Elzy, who has 2 catches for 91 yards. So that's another guy with a big per catch average, and also Jaden Hale has 6 catches for 86 yards. That's a little bit more of a normal number. So they have 4 guys in the top 20 in the conference in receiving. So they are a team that wants to throw the ball. But I think this is going to be Grambling's game. I think they'll come out and take care of business in this one. And I like Grambling 45-9 in that one. And our next and final matchup in our SIAC SWAC unofficial challenge is FAMU taking on Albany State. Now, a lot of people are going with Albany State in this game. I talked to one of the guys who was over the point spreads numbers that I use, and they had Albany State as a 6-point favorite, and I asked them, you know, point blank, man, what up with that spread? And he was like, well, the numbers are the numbers, and man, we just went with the numbers that were generated. I don't think it's gonna end up that way, but those are the numbers, and we rocking with the numbers. So computers love Albany State in this game. Algorithms and stuff love Albany State in this game, but I like FAMU in this game. I don't think FAMU is nowhere near as bad as some people think they are. I mean, you got a guy at quarterback who started his first game in week one, hadn't played a college game, and I think what he's redshirt sophomore or something. You know, he's a young guy that doesn't have a lot of experience. You know, I don't think they run the ball as well as I would have anticipated them running the ball. I don't think they run the ball as much as I probably would have wanted them to run the football with Franklin and Somerset in the backfield. They've only run the ball 62 times, which is like the third fewest in the league. So they're gonna continue to be a team that wants to throw the football. That's their identity, that's their nature, and that's what they're gonna. That's probably what they're gonna be. Um, they've thrown the ball 68 times this season, which is the fourth highest. So they're definitely gonna line up and throw. Um, I do want to say, and this has nothing to do with FAMU. It just stuck out to me because I pulled it up, and I don't want to bring this team back up. But Southern has thrown the ball more than anybody, at least numerically, because they played 3 games. But that's just funny to see them with 78 attempts, even though they're a team that doesn't really throw the ball much. But back to FAMU, they're definitely a team that wants to throw the football. They're uh, averaging about almost 35 34 passes per game. So they're definitely passing the ball. Um, a little bit more than they're running it. I would like I said, I would like to see them run the ball more, but they want to continue to put the ball in RJ Johnson's hands, and see where they go. The defense kind of got ground down against FAU last week, but that shouldn't overshadow the effort that the defense had against Howard. So this is still a team that's only giving up 121 yards per game on the ground this season. So the potential is still there. They just need some positivity. And so I think this is going to be one of those kind of games. Like I said, Albany State is a trendy pick. They got a really good team. I'm not going to even shade them at all. Um, they lead the conference in scoring at 50 points per game. The third in scoring defense at 14 points per game. They lead the league in total offense at 481 yards per game. They have 13 touchdowns on the season. They're averaging 6.7 yards per play, which is second in the league. The fourth in total defense. They lead the league in rushing defense at 241 yards per game. They have 6 touchdowns on the ground, averaging 5.6 yards per carry. They're fourth in passing offense at 240 yards per game. They have 7 touchdowns through the air, only one interception. They complete 67% of their passes. Um, they're a very good team. They lead the league in sacks. Um, so they're a very, very good team. There's nothing to take away from them in terms of disrespectful to them. Javion Jackson is the seventh leading rusher right now in the league. He has 10 carries, 120 yards at a touchdown. Excuse me, receiver. He's the seventh leading receiver with 10 catches for 120 yards and a touchdown, averaging 12 yards per catch. Um, Isaiah Knowles is number 2 at quarterback in the conference, 38 of 55. He has 7 touchdowns, 1 interception, 473 yards. Uh, Tyan Weiss has 24 carries, 172 yards. That's second in the league. He has 2 touchdowns on the season. Knowles has 26 carries for 150 yards. So he's definitely a dual threat guy. Has 3 touchdowns on the ground. Has a longer 50. Like I said, this is a very, very good team. They also have um, Algernon Thomas. He has 20 carries, 95 yards on the season. So you can really they have 3 guys in the top 20 in rushing on this team. Um, so they're definitely going to be a challenge. You got to look at them as a legit challenge. Um, if you family, you definitely you can't afford to come in and look at this team like, oh, this is a D2 team. We're gonna do whatever we got to do and get out of there. But this is definitely gonna be a battle. You have to show up and show out, and you have to be ready to play because they're gonna test you, and they're gonna be ready. And they have the talent. So if you come out and you don't play, solid, then yes, you can lose this game. But I still think FAMU has a lot to offer. Um, and I think that this will be a game that it probably won't be, it probably won't be pretty. It probably won't be one of those games that you want to go back and watch and it's over. But I think they're gonna survive. And I think this can be kind of the start of them kind of moving in the right direction. It's your home opener, so that definitely helps as well. You've been on the road for 2 straight weeks, got the chance to come home and play, a solid opponent. But I like FAMU in this game. I say 28-13. I think the offense gets a couple touchdowns. I think defense might even get a touchdown in this game. Maybe a special teams touchdown. I think this is one of those games that is going to take all the phases for you to win. And I know that sounds funny against a D2 team, but there's talent on that level, and this is a very good team. So, I wouldn't disrespect them by saying FAMU just gonna run all over them and just put points on their ass all night because they D2 and FAMU is FCS, but I do like the Rattlers in this one, and I think it might be even a little, it might be it might be close going in the half. It might be close coming out of the half. But I think FAMU has a second half to pull away and get the victory there. And that's that'll do that one for us. Next we have we have um, four FCS matchups which we're gonna run through. Which I prefer those more than anything because I obviously it's more comfortable opponents. We have two SWAC Southland matchups, and we'll start off with Valley taking on Southeastern Louisiana. The Lions, they coming in with a 1-1 record. They lost to Louisiana Tech, I think it was 24-0, and then they beat Murray State. I think they put 44 on them. So right now that right now, they put 45 on them because right now they're averaging 25.5 points per game. They're fifth in scoring defense at 24 points per game. Total offense, they're fourth at 375 yards per game. Total defense, they're fifth at 326 yards per game. The Lions are top second in the league in rushing at 194 yards per game. So they run the ball pretty well, even in a game that they didn't score. They have the most rushing attempts in the league, so they definitely want to run the ball. They're pretty solid at it. They're a good rushing defense at 133 yards per game. That's including playing the FBS opponent. They're fourth in passing offense, 39 of 64. Uh, One touchdown. They do have three interceptions, and I think the bulk of those came in that Louisiana Tech game, 181 yards per game. They're fifth in total in passing defense at 192 yards per game. Um, they have the third leading rusher in the league, Kyle Lowe. He has 20 carries, 126 yards, three touchdowns, averaging 6.3 yards per carry. Only has a longer 26. But he's a guy who can, really move the ball and move the chains. Not really gonna, at least at this portion of the season, hadn't really broken out on a lot of huge runs, but obviously he's consistent when he runs the ball. Jaden Henry also is in top five in the conference. He has 21 carries, so 109 yards. He averages 5.2 yards per carry. So they definitely, have a nice little 1-2 punch there in the run game. Um, Carson Camp is the quarterback. He's 29 of 47, one touchdown, two interceptions, 295 yards. When they go to the air, they don't. Jalen Domingo has not 6 catches for 70 yards to lead the team at this point. So they, like I said, they are a team who wants to run the ball, and they've done it fairly well. Um, KK Reno is seventh in the league in tackles with 18. So he's a guy you definitely want to look out for on the defensive side of things. Um, Ahmad Bradley uh, has two two tackles for loss on the season right now to lead the team. And when you look at sacks, they don't. Bradley has one sack on the season, which leads the team as well. So you kind of know what this team wants to do. Like I said, they want to line up and run. Valley had a Valley type of game last week against Taunton State. Um, Kind of came in, with a little bit of enthusiasm coming off of the Southern game, but just never really got it going in that game. And so they have struggled. I mean, they just looked they just looked overmatched, and so you gotta find. I think they're still trying to find the identity. Their rushing attack still isn't there. The passing attack wasn't as great in this game. They threw three interceptions in this game. Um, didn't score a touchdown. So they have to find a way to make some things happen. I think defensively they still aren't, and they still aren't that bad. Sixth in passing defense, eighth in rushing defense. Um, Seventh in total defense. So that the defense, I think, is still, even though they gave up a ton of points, I think the defense is still in a better spot than what the offense is. They're going to be tested again here. I just don't know if the team has it for the week to week. I think first game at home, a lot of energy, a lot of emotion. I think a lot of that carried them through that first game. Now, where do you find that week to week? And so I think maybe some of that, some of that, this ain't Valley. It was premature, but I still think there's a team that's gonna, they're gonna beat somebody at some point. It would be great for it to be this game, but I just, this team just doesn't. They just early in the season just haven't really looked the part yet, and that doesn't mean that they can't get there. But right now they just don't really look the part, and so I like Southeastern in this game. I think they win this game um, comfortably. Probably have a big first half. I said 52-7. I think with that run game, I think they're gonna wear Valley down just like last week. And and honestly, the week before they've given up yardage on the ground in the matchups. So I expect that to kind of be the same here. Next up on our continuing our SWAC Southland matchups, we have Lamar taking on Texas Southern. Now Lamar was able to upset South Dakota. I believe their starting quarterback is out this week. Um, so that could be something to keep tabs on. Even with that win over South Dakota, they offensively just did not do a lot in their two games. They're averaging 10 points per game. They're giving up 32. Um, they average 161 yards of offense. They give up 352. Um, they average 85 yards per game on the ground. They give up 134. When you look at their passing offense, they average 76 yards per game. They only completing 48% of their passes, 218 yards through the air on defense. Just not pretty numbers, for a team that's 1-1 that upset a nationally ranked team. Um, they just, I think they just got it done with smoke and mirrors, honestly. Um, so when you look at, kind of what his team is individually, it's not a lot there in terms of the conference numbers. And obviously when you look at the overall numbers, you see that. So and really, like I said, this is just one of those games where um you kind of just don't know what to expect from Lamar. And like Robert Coleman is their starting quarterback. I think he's out on Saturday. So with a team that didn't necessarily play the best football here, um, you gotta expect them to kind of lean on some things. Major Bowden, it probably be one of those guys that they lean on. He has 20 carries for 69 yards on the season. Again, just not a lot individually there. Texas Southern 0-2, but I thought they looked competitive against Cal. Um, Never really could get anything going offensively, but I thought the defense played well. Um, they just, they've had their ups and downs, putting points on the board. Defensively, they haven't been bad, but they haven't really been great either. Um, this should be a this should be an interesting matchup. I mean, TSU wants to run the football. They haven't really done it as much as they want to. Um, Only averaging 93 yards per game. They do have guys that can run the ball. I like Renfro run the ball. I think Cooper is solid at quarterback. They have some good receivers. Um, Leary's an explosive guy. Of course, the team is really good on special teams in the return game. But I honestly I think this is going to be a very low scoring game. And if Lamar's playing without their starting quarterback, which wasn't a huge difference in any other portion of the season, um, this could be a game kind of similar to last year's game, where it's like a low scoring game that comes down to the end. Um, I'm going with TSU in this one, man. I think they find a way to pull up. I don't even know what I'm talking upset, but I think they find a way to win this game. I'm gonna say like 18-16, man. I don't think it's gonna be a really high scoring game at all. I think TSU maybe can grind this out and get the dub and just make it happen like that. Next up is South Carolina State hosting Bethune Cookman. Wildcats playing a third straight game on the road. Um, two FBS games, and then the defending MEAC champs on the road. Um, Cookman hasn't really shown much this season. They haven't scored a touchdown yet. They've kicked 4 field goals this season, and so they've had a tough go of it in two FBS matchups. So it's not really much that you can take from this team numerically because they just haven't really played a comfortable opponent. I know Timmy McClain has got the bulk of the snaps at quarterback. He seems to be moving into that QB1 spot. So where they go with that, they do have some guys that can catch the ball, like Malik Huggins and Javon Ross. They have a couple of new backs that can run the football defensively. I think Steven Sparrow had a pretty good game last week. But I don't really know what his team is, and I don't want to project them being anywhere because they haven't played an FCS opponent yet. South Carolina State has a FCS matchup against Wofford, which was a very low scoring game. And then they played a pretty tough game against South Carolina where they gave up 2 punt returns for touchdowns. We kind of changed the game. It was 38-14, I think. You know, and like I said in my point spread video, that's not to say that South Carolina wouldn't have scored if they didn't score them punt returns. Maybe they're still scoring them drives, but maybe they don't. And then you got a 24-14 game. So they played a really good game in that game against a FCS SEC opponent, but just couldn't really get out of the way to make much happen. Um, they've been a pretty average team numerically. Um, they are tops in the league in total defense. A lot of it is definitely weighed by the Wofford game, but still, even after playing an FBS opponent, you only allowing 197 yards on defense as a whole. That's very good. 105 yards on defense on the ground. They haven't run the ball well yet this season. 86 yards. Offensively, they really haven't played great. I mean, they do lead the league in passing offense at 255 yards, but um, I don't think they've shown what they have yet. And they're only giving up 92 yards on defense through the air. This is going to be a tough game for Bethune Cookman because, like I said, South Carolina State has shown that they can make some things happen. Casey Adams is a capable guy to run the ball. Um, Stubblefield, he's improving at quarterback. Um, they lost so much from last season, but they seem to be filling in. Jalen Johnson is third in the league in receiving with 11 catches for 160 yards. So they definitely have guys there. Cyrus Ellison also has 6 catches for 70 yards. Um, and Johnny Jones has 4 catches for 58 yards on the season. So they have weapons. DeAndre Ruffin also has 7 catches for 52 yards. So they have guys that they can spread that ball around to on offense. Um, and so I like South Carolina State in this game. I think they win this game pretty comfortably. Bethune Cookman, like I said, we just don't have any clue where these guys are. And so this would probably be their first real test because they play 2 FBS games, but just be a tough FCS opponent. I like South Carolina State in this game, but I scored 38-10. Um, and I think they get the win there, sending Bethune Cookman on to their final matchup, well, final matchup into their Week 4 matchup against Edward Waters. Next up is our game of the week. Not necessarily a great game to pick, but there really wasn't a lot to pick from. So we're gonna go with this one, and that's Tennessee State hosting Alabama A&M. This is definitely a game that could be a really good game if both teams kind of show up to play. Um, Bulldogs had a really good offensive game against Alcorn last week defensively. They made the plays when they needed to. Corey Brown really had a good game for the Bulldogs in this one. I think he had 5 touchdowns, I believe. Really made some good plays. Built on some things that they had in the previous game against Arkansas on that first drive. They're averaging 213 yards per game through the air on offense. Defensively, they did get torched in that first game, so the numbers are kind of skewed a little bit, but they giving up 263 yards per game through the air, um, 190 on the ground on defense, um, 130 on offense on the ground. Again, a lot of these numbers are kind of off because of your matchup that you played week one. 343 yards on offense as a team, 453 as a team on defense, um, 24 points per game on offense, and 41 and a half on defense. Maurice Edwards leads the conference right now in rushing. He has 69 carries for 270 yards and 4 touchdowns. Um, that's a guy that people should really pay. That's a name that we all should start to pay attention to as the season moves forward. He's off to a really good start. Only one of only one of a few guys that has over 200 yards on the season so far. Um, really a good guy running the ball. Now he's almost more of a bruiser. I mean, he's averaging 3.9 yards per carry, so not a lot of explosive runs in that number. And he ran the ball 69 times, so they definitely are hitching their horse to him. He has more carries than anybody in the conference, including guys that have played 3 games. So he's definitely one of those guys that they seem like they're gonna hitch their horse to, and let him go. So I expect him to get a lot of carries in this game. Like I said, Quar Brown's another guy who can run the ball, but he's also been solid passing the ball, especially in the last game. So you expect to see him continue 34-53, 3 touchdowns, 390 yards, no interceptions on the season. Good numbers there. Um, Davion Walker had 7 catches for 93 yards on the season and a touchdown. Also, Jordan Chambers Smith, who had a good game last week. He had 6 catches for 74 yards and a touchdown. Also, Frank Pierre, who came from Miles, had 7 catches for 71 yards. Also, Trevante Abner. I don't think I see him on this list, but he's another guy who had some good catches over these previous 2 weeks. So the weapons are there on offense, and like I said, the defense is getting better. And like I said, they seem like they want to run the football. I mean, you got a guy who ran 69 times in 2 games. You want to run the football. So I think they're gonna definitely be a factor there. Tennessee State, new head coach, new identity, kind of sort of. Um, had a big win over North Carolina A&T to open up the season. Then ran into North Dakota State the next week. So they're kind of all over the place. 13 and a half points per game, allowed 40. I mean, 13 points per game, scored 40 allowed. Um, Total offense there at 383 yards of offense, 191 yards per game. They're giving up 368. The rushing attack is fifth at 99 yards per game. They do have 2 touchdowns. Rushing defense is at 162 yards per game. The passing offense is eighth at 92 yards per game. They have 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. Passing defense is third at 226 yards per game. They have 3 touchdowns allowed, 1 interception. A name that most people around here should be very familiar with. That's Kendrick Grimes. He's actually second in the conference right now with 33 carries for 217 yards and averaging 6.6 yards per carry with 2 touchdowns, has a longer 60. He's a guy that's always gonna be a threat to break a long run at any time. That's definitely a weapon that you love to have in your offense. Jonathan Palmer, who is I think is Carson Palmer's nephew. Um, I don't know if that's Jordan Palmer's son or if he, son of a brother or sister, but he's obviously related to those USC quarterbacks from back in the day. He's 16 to 34 passing, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, 161 yards. So not a lot going on in the pass game for them right now. Um, Devon Slaughter does have 5 catches for 106 yards and 1 touchdown. So he's averaging 21 yards per catch. This is an intriguing game because I think this is one of those matchups that's probably going to be built on big plays. You got a back um, like like Kendrick Grimes who can really break some, and then you got an offense that's kind of more looking like they want to be more methodical. Move the ball down the field, move the ball down the field. Quarterback can run it, quarterback can throw it. A back that you're gonna feed all day. I like the Bulldogs in this game, man. I think they win this one. I think it's gonna be close. I got them 27-24 with the dub, but I like them a lot in this one. I think they're gonna be a surprise team. Like I said, we'll see more from them as we move through the season and we get into conference play. We'll find out more about them. But I thought they played a really good game last week. And so I think they're gonna only get better. I mean, as the season goes on, you start to typically play better. I mean, some teams do regress, but I think for the most part, I think they will continue to get better. And I like some of the things that they've done so far. And so I have them winning 27-24. We're gonna take a quick look at week 4. I mean, obviously we haven't even played week 3, but I like to kind of look ahead since we previewed this week. We're gonna recap it on Sunday and we have Swag Smoke coming on Thursday, 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern. So Saturday, September 20th, light slate, a real light slate. There's only 4 games on the schedule. We have Edward Waters at Bethune-Cookman. We have Lane at Alabama A&M, East Texas A&M at Grambling, and Northwestern State at Prairie View. A lot of teams are off. Swag play starts in earnest on the 27th of September. So next week is a very light week. So there's not a lot there. So that's where we stand. We'll cover that when we get to it. But like I said, we'll be back on Wednesday. On Sunday to recap the action. And so we're gonna get on up out of here again, man. Y'all make sure y'all check out the Yard Apparel Brand .com website and get y'all some nice fly stuff and show out and show up. So with that being said, man, I'm the tour guide around the Swag Seawell signing out, and I'll catch y'all on the rebound. Peace.